Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be taking a first look at Mythic Bruce, who is going to be an exclusive character attached to the RV Elegy event. Visually on the right hand side he is the beard and glasses. We always know it's the same sort of beard and glasses he wears with all of his characters. He's had a grenade launcher. He was the first disarm character, is that right? He was the first disarm character, right? He had beard and glasses for both of those two. This time around he is a strong character with one of the most gruesome looking weapons we've ever seen. It is two walker heads on the end of a stick, which looks very interesting. He's got a lot of grenades attached, and I literally just saw he's got a walker's head in his bag as well. And you can see it on the left hand side with the extra grenades, the walker's head with a meat cleaver in it as well. We can actually see he's got some tattoos. I don't think we've seen it on previous Bruce's. I could be wrong there. And he looks like he's in warrior mode. He is very excited, extremely happy with whatever's just happened. So that's Bruce for you. We do have a tier 5 gold mythic here at level 600, and with that you get 13,983 attack, 13,571 defense, and 13,571 HP. He is a strong character. He is a support character, obviously a mythic, but he is part of the Alexandria Allegiance. You can see below his name it says Alexandria's Angels as well. So it's just worth noting that's the allegiance group that he is going to be a part of. Now when it comes to Bruce's rush, it is called Skull Basher. It is a 66 AP cost rush, so pretty fast. Attack an enemy for 300% damage. That enemy gets 30% of this character's attack in bleed damage for 2 turns. So kind of similar to some other characters we've got in the game where they do bleed damage based on their attack stat. It does maybe seem like Bruce could have some good synergy with the likes of Shiva and Vincent in a bleedy attack team. This does quite a lot of damage to a single target. 300% isn't too bad, but the bleed is extremely high, considering you can easily get someone's attack stat to 30 to 40k without too much of a problem. That bleed is going to start doing lots of damage, and don't forget, any buffs you have on this character amplifies that bleed as well. So let's say he's in a full strong attack team and you have 50% attack because someone's holding a strong attacks weapon. He's going to be getting extra bleed on top because of that buff. So any source of attack buff will amplify the bleed on his rush. Okay, so we have got Bruce, his rush, and as you can see he has got a 20% attack buff, so it is going to be boosted just a little bit. He is unmodded currently, and we're going to attack Garrett, who I've fully modded defensively because I don't want to take him out. I just want to do some damage, and we want to see how high that bleed can get. So we'll rush Garrett. You can see the bleed goes to 12,249. Garrett has got like 30,000 plus defense and HP, whereas Bruce obviously just doesn't have any buffs at all. He's only getting leader skill and his weapon, that's pretty much it. He's not getting any mods. Obviously that bleed can be amplified. He has got a 20% buff right now, and I will show you later in the video how high we can get that attack buff to basically see how high we can get that bleed at the same time. But 12,250 bleed nearly doesn't sound too bad. Obviously if you follow that up with a lacerator, that's going to be nearly 25,000 bleed damage, and against those extremely tanky characters that's going to be great because it's going to ignore one of their main defensive stats, which is defense. It's just going to go straight onto the HP, and that's going to be extremely powerful. You have to make sure it's comboed with the right characters though. There are only 2 lacerators in the game right now, and that would be Shiva and the more accessible Vincent, who is obviously a silver mythic. If we look at the upgrades on his rush, you can see that at tier 3 it goes from 20% of his attack stat in bleed damage to 30%, and at tier 5 it goes from a 200% single target rush to a 300% single target rush. You do not have to use any military supplies, so no upgrades required. You just have to get him up to tier 5 to get the max usage out of this rush. Now the rush is 66 AP, so he will need AP on attack weapon on attack or defense. He will need some sort of AP gain somewhere else on an attack team, obviously, because he can get up to 65 naturally. On a defense team, he will need it because if you have a stat weapon, he can get to 59, and he'll need to get 7 AP from somewhere. If you completely ignore this guy, he just won't rush. So it's beneficial to have AP on attack there to make him a little bit more scary if you want to use him on a defense team. Fortunately, his defensive stats are not terrible, so you don't have to worry too much about him losing, you know, some stats and being maybe too offensive. You don't really need to get that attack stat up too high if you do plan to use him on a defense team, but it will make his bleed damage not as powerful. That is just obviously the kind of trade-off that you're going to have to make. So that's his rush, and we'll come across to look at his signature move, and it is called Furious Swing. It has got an initial cooldown of turn 3, cooldown of 3, and number of uses unlimited. Deal 150% damage to one enemy and all adjacent. One enemy gets minus 20% defense down for 2 turns. Now it is worth noting that turn 3 initial cooldown means that it's going to generally go off at the same turn his rush would. That is obviously a bit disappointing. Cooldown of 3 turns means pretty much the same situation. But if you did use it on turn 4, which would be the turn after your natural rush turn, then it would go into a bit of a better sync. So it would be turn 1 and turn 2 would be basic attacks, turn 3 rush, turn 4 signature move, then turn 5 would be basic attack, turn 6 would be another rush, and then turn 7 would be signature move. And that would be kind of how it would go naturally. If someone doesn't have a turn 1 or turn 2 signature move, I personally don't really like it, just because of the fact that it's generally going to go off on the same turn as their rush, which is not great. You're generally going to use your rush over the signature move. Unless everybody's weak with this rush, it's not very good to use it over the signature move. I don't know. Now, the defense down does go to someone random. I have actually tested this out already. It isn't to the person you attack, but it's just one of the 5 people that get hit, or up to 5 people that get hit. Now, it can deal a reasonable amount of damage. 150% is not too bad at all, and obviously it doesn't take into account attack versus mods. So if you did double down on attack versus, you're going to do extra damage against certain traits. Okay, so here we are on turn 3, the turn we would normally rush, but we're going to use the signature move instead. We're going to select that central character, and we're going to swipe left. And what will happen is one of the random 5 characters here will get defense down. It isn't necessarily going to be Maggie, but it could be her. It's actually going to be Garrett in the top right-hand corner. And that is just something, obviously, to note that it may just be one of the random 5. Now, obviously, it being 150% damage, it's not going to be hitting amazingly hard, but it could weaken and soften up a team for rampage characters to follow up. Or maybe even an actual follow-up character could come in afterwards that you've already just weakened a little bit, just to give them more of a guarantee to take out a character and get their rush naturally, just based on the fact that they'll get another turn. So he's mainly obviously a support character. The support role does seem to play well. The defense down is a nice little bonus, but it will not work against Ezekiel leads, at least in the first sort of sequence. Ezekiel's leader skill will last long enough until the second time around, effectively, on Bruce's signature move here. Now you can see the upgrades. At tier 2 it goes from a 4-turn cooldown down to a 3-turn cooldown, and at tier 4 it goes from 100% damage to one enemy and all adjacent to 150% damage to one enemy and adjacent. So you don't need to get 2 gold mythics to get the best out of this, and you also do not need to upgrade anything here with military supplies. So it's going to be 100% as powerful as it can be, as long as you get him to tier 4. Now, of course, Bruce has some mythic abilities. These are his passive skills. Cunning is the passive for support characters. When attacking or being attacked, 15% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. This is only going to affect Bruce. So disarms can disarm weapons for other people, whereas Bruce has a 15% chance, if you upgrade this, to not make things trigger, like stun on defense, which is actually going to be a nice bonus. Disarms never trigger it, but Bruce has a 15% chance. Tactical teamwork is the next passive. When attacking, target gets 30% heal reduction for 2 turns. You might have seen that pop up in the rush example that I was giving, in the signature example, where just based on his rush, his signature move, he'll just potentially do 30% heal reduction for 2 turns to someone, which is actually kind of nice. It's going to be maybe decent on something like Conquest, where there are a lot of fast healing weapons in that game mode, but it's only a 30% heal reduction, even though it does happen every single time he attacks, which obviously is quite a nice boost. It will reduce the amount of healing they take, and especially on Conquest, those guys are healing for tens of thousands, so it is going to be quite nice if you have got that one last character to deal with. He has got 2 last passives. One is called In Memoriam. When taken out, 60% chance that up to 2 teammates get a Guardian Shield. Now, I'm not a huge fan of these sort of things. I would prefer it to be like 100% chance that something happens, and it happens just to a weaker amount. So, for instance, 1 teammate gets a Guardian Shield. He isn't necessarily going to be that character gets focused either on an attack team. A lot of the time, the defense team's dogpile attacking characters, really, really offensive characters. And if he's on a defense team, I mean, you're going to know that he's got this potentially, so you could leave him till last, and you're going to be able to manipulate this a bit better. And, well, 2 Guardian Shields is going to be annoying if it does happen. It's not going to be that big of a game-changing thing. So I wouldn't say this is necessarily a priority to upgrade. When you look at the last slot, however, Tempered Glass, when this character starts their turn, all teammates with the damage roll get 20% defense for 1 turn. I actually like that quite a lot, especially on attack teams, just because you probably guys have seen it. You've got an attacking character and they just get hard focused by all 5 enemies. If they've got a 20% defense boost, and even a damage dealer 20% defense boost is generally going to be another 2,000 to 3,000 defense, it's going to be nice. It's going to be reducing the amount of damage they're going to take, and this is going to give them more chance to actually survive that first turn and get them onto their signature moves and potentially their rushes. So I like this for an attack team. It could also be decent for a defense team if you want to use some offensive characters there too. Okay, so we're going to show you 2 things that his passive offer. As you can see, we've got 4 damage dealers, some of the best damage dealers in the game right now, on the team with him, and they're all getting a 20% defense boost because Bruce is in this team. If we take Bruce out, he has a 60% chance that 2 of these teammates are going to get a Guardian Shield like just happened. That's pretty much as simple as it works. It went to the 2 characters with the lowest HPs, which were I think they're called Jebs. These are the Jebediahs. I'm not actually 100% sure what his name is. Is it Jeb? I'm pretty sure it's Jeb. This is a World Champions logo, but I'm pretty sure it's Jeb. But as you can see, 20% defense buff. As long as Bruce was alive at the beginning of the turn, the defense buff will remain for that turn. And if you take him out, those Guardian Shields will pop up, potentially 60% of the time. Now, if we check out the upgrades for the passives, you can see at tier 1, it's Tactical Teamwork, and that's the 30% heal reduction. At tier 2 is Cunning, and that is going to be his support character passive. At tier 3, it's 1/2 of In Memoriam. It's the first 30% chance to get 2 teammates a Guardian Shield. And at tier 4, it's the second half of In Memoriam. It's the second 30% chance to get those 2 teammates a Guardian Shield. Now at tier 5, you will require the second Bruce as a gold mythic to get Tempered Glass. When this character starts their turn, all teammates with the damage roll get 20% defense for 1 turn. So this is, I think, the best passive that he has in terms of what he offers as a support character. Nothing else seems to buff him, really. So he's got a little bit of control, and then there's one where if he gets taken out. If he had something that buffed his attack potentially, or there was something to do with his bleed, that could potentially have been one to go for. But Tempered Glass seems to be the best one for him as a support character here. And none of them seem to play into his specialist skill either. You probably did see it on the previews before. On a roll, this character's attack increases by 20% at the start of each turn after the first, up to a maximum of 120% after 6 turns. The bonus resets if taken out, stunned, or impaired. On the rush test I think he had a 20% buff, and that was because I got his rush on turn 2. Like I said, it's each turn after the first. So on his second turn, it'll be 20%, turn 3, it'll be 40%, turn 4, it'll be 60%, and so on and so forth. This is obviously an extremely powerful specialist skill. Lots and lots of power here. It's really good for defense team characters, honestly, because you can have someone sit back on heavy defensive stats and then they just rely on the attack from this specialist skill to get the boost. And that's where he could get that bleed, obviously, up. On an attack team, it's going to amplify it just as normal. 30% boost of his attack stat includes any attack boost that he's getting, and that would include the specialist skill on a roll. Okay, so here we are on a very heavy sustain team. This is a lot of fast healing weapons just to make sure that Bruce stays alive. He has got that 120% buff. I have got a very tanky Garrett on a defense team here. He's got lots of bonus HP, lots of defense, lots of HP. I have modded Bruce a little bit. He's got gold mods just to boost his attack by a bit. We mainly want to see what kind of bleed damage he can get up to with this, just to see. Let's have a little look. He gets up to 23,517 bleed. It is obviously going to do the heal reduction as well, but if you noticed, it also did stun. So it does maybe seem like the rush is working like a multi-hit rush, but just doing single hits. This may not be the way it's meant to work, but that would actually be pretty cool. I'd like that actually quite a lot. The downside there is the potential that he could be stunned. and impaired, or whatever the weapon the defensive character is holding could stop his damage, absolute defense, that sort of thing. But if you were to follow this up with a lacerator, that would go up to nearly 50,000 bleed damage. Not many tanks are going to be surviving that. So that's how Honor Roll works. Every turn, 20% boost, and it will affect that bleed damage potential as well. And like you saw, can go extremely high. This is going to work on attack or defense. If you do have him on a defense team, though, that bleed damage is not going to go as high, just because you're most likely not going to increase that attack stat with his weapon and with his combat mods as much. Now, talking about his weapon, we have seen it in the preview, and it looks pretty gruesome. It is Bruce's surprising water kebab pole. What is even going on here? 25% attack, a medium bonus to AP when attacking, bonus crit, 35 crit when attacking enemies with more than 60% of their max HP. I don't even think I need to read these out too much, because generally speaking, they're not very good. This is definitely an upgrade weapon. It is all for the visuals, and the visuals are pretty insane. I think we'll all agree. They are insane. If you want to put him on an attack team, offensive weapon. If you want to put him on a defense team, defensive weapon, and just rely on a roll. This is pretty simple with, you know, his weapon. He just needs AP on attack regardless of what team he's on. Otherwise, he will not be rushing quickly. And that's pretty much the main thing he brings to the table. His signature move is not really that great, so you're going to need to get that rush off as much as possible. So this is Bruce, and he is going to be the unique character in the RV Elegy event. He is part of the Alexandria group as well, the Allegiance. So that might be worth noting if you did want to bolster your roster and think about allegiances. But I think he's a pretty decent character, and he could work nicely on pretty much any attack team just because of that passive that he's got where he protects damage dealers. He's going to add some bleed damage on top. He has got a good potential to work on nice teams with Shiva, Vincent, potentially even like Abraham because of the way Abraham works as well. Just lots of damage over time teams, and I think he's going to be someone who adds to that. A lot of those damage over time characters are damage dealers as well, so he's obviously going to buff them in their defense, and that is definitely not a bad thing in my opinion. But do give me your thoughts on Bruce, his visuals, his skills. Do tell me what you like about him the most. Is he the kind of character you want to see in events? Is there something you would have changed to make him, you know, a bit different? I do not like the signature move at all. Turn 3, I just do not like it. If it was turn 2, it would be like, okay. But turn 3, big nope. But do give me your thoughts down in the comments. That is the end of my video. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.